Hello everyone, and welcome back to the show that today gets somehow even handsomer than your host, Mark Ellis. It's also going to get funnier and more charming, and I'd say in all likelihood better smelling because we got an all-time great matchup on our hands. Right now on Versus, it's a hootenanny harboring Hollywood's hottest hunks, Brad Pitt and George Clooney. You heard it right. The two A-listers who've combined to win 4 People's Sexiest Man of the Year awards are now duking it out for career bragging rights on the show that's been described as fast-paced, witty, and as entertaining as it is star-studded and coolly stylish. Oh wait, that was just the critics' consensus for Ocean's 11. But that stars George and Brad and like 38 other famous people, and a cameo by either me or Topher Grace. Go back, watch the movie, and you'll figure it out.
Really?
In one corner, we have Brad Pitt, one of the greatest movie stars of all time, who you love from flicks like Fight Club, Moneyball, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He also produces big-time movies, and I hear he's in pretty good shape. In the other corner, it's George Clooney, whom you may adore from movies like Out of Sight, Michael Clayton and The Descendants. He also directs big-time movies, and I have it on good authority that he is an actual doctor. Or played one on TV, but I'd still trust him to give me a physical, and I've said too much. Here's how we'll determine a winner. Round 1, box office. Round 2, Tomatometer/audience score. Round 3, iconic moments. Round 4, zestfully clean. And then we'll do a wild card round that could involve any of the many tricks in the respective bags of Brad and George. They star in movies, produce, direct them, and somehow still find the time to represent charities, sell adult beverages, and appear on the covers of countless magazines. They're busy fellas, so I'll forgive them for not showing up here today. It's water under the bridge, boys. Oh, and did I mention that they both have won the highest prize Tinseltown has to offer? You heard me right. In fact, these leading men have combined to win 5 MTV Movie Awards. Mr. Smith is going head-to-head against Mr. Fox, and the winner will be granted exclusive access to my spec script for Ocean's 14, where we take Buffalo Bills in Prim, Nevada for every cent it's worth. Let's get it on. Round 1, box office. It's fun to be a TV star like Clooney was, and I imagine it's a pretty sweet gig to be a perfectly abbed stud in Thelma and Louise. But once these fellas started earning starring roles in feature films, we all came out to bear witness. Yes, Brad and George have padded their blockbuster resume with lots of art house indies and Oscar darlings, but it's all added up to some seriously boffo box office for the bros. For George Clooney, his top 5 grossing films of all time have been a mixed bag of starring roles and ensemble pieces, most of which involve large bodies of water. The Ocean's trilogy represents 3 of his 5 biggest movie theater takeovers, and they combined for over $1.1 billion. But G. Cloon, no one's ever called him that, and with good reason, wasn't done with his aquatic references. His 4th highest grossing flick ever is The Perfect Storm, which sailed to $328 million and gave us an all-time great money shot in the trailer. As for Cloon Dog, I'll find a good nickname for him at some point. His biggest blockbuster ever? We go to Gravity, the Sandra Bullock starring, they're cousins or siblings or something of that Ocean franchise. Space drama that took in $688 million here on planet Earth. In space, no one can hear you scream, but on this planet, I can listen to your cries that George wasn't even in that movie for that long. And 'tis a fair point, but get this. Brad Pitt's highest grossing movie ever is? Nope, it's not the baseball one. It's not the vampire or the zombie one. It's not even any of them Ocean flicks. It's Deadpool 2. And he's in it for like 0.4 seconds, which is barely enough time to get a shot off in the NBA. So I won't give him full credit for that $700 million plus total, but still, dude was only in it for a parsec, and we all recognized him. Brad also has World War Z, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and Troy checking in with more coin than the Ocean's films. WWZ made $536 million, with Smith and Troy both notching above $480 million. And how's this for a diverse array of smash hits? Movies like Inglourious Basterds, Megamind, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Seven, and The Curious Case of Benny Buttons all grossed over $300 million. Wow. We will see this guy in anything. Like the time I paid full price to see Meet Joe Black, just so that I could see the first trailer for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace on the big screen. And I'm convinced at least half of that movie's $44 million total take was thanks to nerds like me wanting to see some galaxy far, far away. Wait, you're telling me the horn guy's lightsaber ignites in both directions? One for Meet Joe Black, please.
When I introduce you, if I say who you are, I don't think anyone will stay for dinner.
Then don't.
I also paid to see From Dusk Till Dawn several times because it slaps, as the kids say, and I would argue it's the superior vampire movie. More on that later. How'd it do back in 1996? Only $25 million. Luckily, GC stuck with this Hollywood thing and cranked out hits like The Descendants at $175 million, Tomorrowland at $206 million, and Batman and Robin at $238 million. Say what you want, but it's arguably the 5th best Batman film of the 90s.
This is why Superman works alone.
The two dear friends teamed up for Burn After Reading, which scorched the multiplex for a total of $168 million. But from there, we get a slew more Brad Pitt mentions. 12 Monkeys chimped its way to $168 million as well. 12 Years a Slave made $180 million. And Fury and Interview with the Vampire, not a vampire, the vampire, both cruised to well over 200 million bones. Okay, so they're both as bankable and as reliable as movie stars get, with possibly a wider array of genres than any other two A-listers. But as of now, Brad Pitt can claim the higher total box office numeral, making $8.54 billion worth of cash register jingles. Clooney, ooh, I like that. We're keeping that one. Flicks have raked in an even $5 billion, making for a per movie average of $140 million. Can his good bud Brad topple that? Well, last time I checked, $186 million is the higher of the two numbers, and coincidentally, that happens to be his exact per cinematic experience average. It's been a good slugfest in this opening round of verses, but after trading body blows for the last 3 decades, Brad Pitt emerges as the box office king over Prince George, and Mr. Cool World wins round 1. Even though Cool World did like $14 million total, which is somehow still $2 million more than True Romance. Okay, we're going to talk about this in the next round. Round 2, Tomatometer / audience score. Yes, now the critics and audiences will have their say, and I'll save you all the suspense. True Romance is at 93%, eking its way past Cool World's 4%. Hey, if Roger Rabbit hadn't come along a few years prior, we all still might own VHS copies of Cool World. Brad and George have been able to maintain their career apexes for dozens of years, not just because they're handsome, but because they make quality entertainment time and time again. But who's freshest in the veggie patch? Let's take a look. Brad Pitt produced and acted in his 2 freshest films, 12 Years a Slave at 95% and Moneyball at 94%. He's also got Inglourious Bastards at 89%, 12 Monkeys at 88%, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at 85%. George Clooney, who I must point out at this juncture, was in a movie that actually involved a real tomato, bleeds fresh V8 as well. Once again, Gravity is his top dog, this time on the Tomatometer with a 96%, followed by Three Kings at 94%, and a trio of flicks at 93%. The Fantastic Mr. Fox, Out of Sight, and Good Night and Good Luck, which he also directed and wrote, and I think produced. Does this guy take naps? As far as big-time misses for these two fellas, Brad has less high-profile ones, but Beyond the Sea was also produced by him, and it only mustered a 34%. The Devil's Own, despite starring Harrison Ford and featuring fun, questionable Irish accents, rests down below at 35%.
I'm in a bind. I don't have time to explain. I'll get my gear and I'll clear out.
Then we arrive at Mr. Clooney. The good news for all you Batman fans is that Batman and Robin is not his lowest of all time on the Tomatometer. And that might be the only silver lining for that movie. It's at 12%, but I can't stress this enough. It has nothing to do with Mr. Freeze's puns. Keep doing your thing, Arnold.
All right, everyone, chill.
Clooney's lowest ever on the Tomatometer is super ironic because it's the actual movie that does star a certain vegetable. Return of the Killer Tomatoes, released in 1988, is at 0%.
Come on, look, who cares about tomatoes?
But come on, it was the 80s and George probably needed some coin. I didn't give Brad full credit for Deadpool 2's box office glory, so I'm also not going to penalize George for taking a role that was basically between The Facts of Life and ER TV gigs. Speaking of, ER currently has an 84% audience score. Facts of Life doesn't have a Tomatometer consensus, but you know where it is 100%? Right in here. Good, bad, you take them both, and there you have the movies of Brad and George. All told, the fellas are very close when it comes to their per-film average on the Tomatometer. Brad Pitt is at 65%, bested by George's 67%. So now we'll look at the audience score side of things. It's pretty close here too. For Pitt, Fight Club, Seven, and Snatch climb all the way up the metric into the 90s. Clooney isn't quite as big with the audiences, but Oh Brother, Where Art Thou still manages an 89%. Fantastic Mr. Fox is at 85%. And George also has a cameo as, you guessed it, a doctor in South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and that kennies its way to an 88% audience score. And now the bad news for Cape Crusader adorers. Batman and Robin is the low bar for Clooney on the audience score, resting at 16%. Return of the Killer Tomatoes, however, rebounds mightily and gets all the way to 49%. Do I smell a sequel in the works? Brad and George could produce it, George could direct it, it'd be free publicity for us, everyone wins. Speaking of directorial efforts, George's best flick on the Tomatometer would be Good Night and Good Luck at 93%, but he also has The Ides of March at 84% and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind at 79%. Sadly for all involved, The Monuments Men, which should have been great, everything was right there, fell flat and landed at 30% on the Tomatometer. George's directing average per film on the TM is just south of fresh at 58%, but I have the confidence that that's going to get to fresh once our new The Killer Tomatoes Awaken movie comes out. Both fellows have adjudicated themselves fabulously, despite some early career choices coming back to haunt them. But because he's got a slight advantage on the Tomatometer with some help from the movies he directed, I'm going to lean ever so slightly in George's direction. Looney G gets the point, and we're tied at 1 apiece. Round 3, iconic moments. When you have icons like a George Clooney or a Brad Pitt, you need an equally iconic host to run down all the many memorable moments they provided us over the years. But apparently Chuck Barris was busy hosting The Gong Show, so you got me. And for Clooney, it always seems that his best scenes and sequences are derived from his ability to speak to another character in a way that's part empathetic, part condescending, all charisma. Dude can fire you, hire you, or ask for your help like he's the smoothest guy on the planet, even when he may technically be hovering above the planet at that particular time. For Brad Pitt, there's no glossy way to say this. Dude eats on camera better than anyone since that kid from the pie eating contest in Stand By Me. In the Ocean's films, he's crushing fancy Vegas buffet fare like shrimp cocktails. In Moneyball, he prefers junk food like Twinkies. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he's chugging late 1960s brewskis. And to our loyal viewers out there, that diet is not going to make you look like Brad Pitt. Believe me, I've tried, as recently as this morning, and probably later on this evening. George Clooney's big screen presence was evident even on NBC's must-see TV Thursday night lineup, but for me that promise was validated with his sinful leader in From Dusk Till Dawn. It would be the first in a line of con artist types that we would never root for in real life, but that George is just so damn charming. Even Harvey Keitel and his kiddos kind of like George, and Clooney kidnapped them and took them to a vampire lair disguised as a crazed biker bar. Sweet neck tat as well. The rest of the world probably found out how suave Clooney could be when he starred in Out of Sight, and from that moment on, J-Lo and G. Clo would be household names forevermore. The most iconic scene in that one film is up for debate, but the ride those two hotties take in a car trunk together is way up there. Can I also shout out The Peacemaker? Not the show, it's really not the best movie ever, but I do love when he's dangling on top of what could be a bomb as he's holding onto a rope tied to a bridge for dear life. It's fun stuff. Before Brad Pitt became iconic, his midsection was already laying the groundwork. Thelma and Louise showcased him as a sexy rogue cowboy. True Romance saw him as a stoner roomie with almost nothing going on, but it wasn't until Seven that we saw some real iconic moments. I know, Legends of the Fall has some wondrous hero shots, and A River Runs Through It features fly fishing with my close personal friend Tom Skerritt. But then Seven hit, and it was like, wow, this guy can keep up with Morgan Freeman. Matching wits with a fella who voices God and a penguin soothsayer ain't easy, but check out his absolute breakdown when he discovers what's in the box. Hint, it's not a Goop product. Well, I mean, from a certain point of view,
What's in the box? What's in the f***ing box?
bumbling brother Evitt in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou kicked off a string of successful Clooney turns in Coen Brothers movies, and that trend would continue to rave reviews in flicks like Hail Caesar and Burn After Reading, a movie where the scene stealer was Brad Pitt. He plays possibly the dimmest personal trainer on earth, but it's a hilarious turn that holds up after repeat viewings. While we're on the subject of collabing, how about that Ocean's trilogy? 12 and 13 may not have been as memorable, but that's only because the first Ocean's 11 was such a rollicking good time. Clooney as Danny Ocean convincing Matt Damon to join the gang. Brad Pitt in goofy disguises while getting his carb loading done is a hoot. But both fellas can get serious when they need to. Clooney has some yucks above raging emotional waters in The Descendants, and his slick-talking firer in Up in the Air is as inspiring for travelers as it is for folks thinking about settling down. One day, maybe, who knows. All right, I'm blushing a little bit. I like that movie a lot. But for me, Clooney in movies like Michael Clayton and Syriana is next level. He's just so focused in different ways. Trying to work through the growing madness inside Tom Wilkinson in Clayton, then you have a much pudgier George taking center stage in Syriana. Similarly, Brad Pitt can have a good time while going through competitive anguish in Moneyball, and his meeting with the baseball scouts is an all-timer. An underrated asset for Pitt is his ability to fully disappear into roles, despite the fact that he's arguably the biggest A-lister on this planet. Sure, he's had his hero moments in epics like Troy and next-level fun and chemistry with Angelina Jolie and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but he was also Benjamin Button, Anne of Empire, and Lieutenant Aldo Rain in Inglourious Bastards. He's a refreshing breath of American machismo as he owns the camera in every scene in that movie, in the same way that you can't take your eyes off of him in another Tarantino film, you know, the one that took place once upon a time in parts of the Valley.
Fair enough.
It's such a tough call between the two. Up in the Air has defined my life goals as a comedian who frequently travels on the road. I love hotel living, and I'm obsessed with finding the best airport bar in every terminal. I highly recommend Chili's 2 in Terminal C in Chicago. But Pitt in 12 Monkeys changed my entire outlook on what a movie star could do. And then, the mic drop iconic moment, Tyler Durden in Fight Club.
Hit me in the ear.
The rules about Fight Club speech, the meeting on an airplane, the reveal-ish of who the hell this Spectre really was, it's a fascinating exploration brought to life by Pitt's performance. Clooney was down for a scrap in this round, but you don't talk about the club. Brad Pitt ekes out a victory in this round and goes up 2-1. Round 4, Zestfully Clean. All right, Mark, we get it. They're super famous movie stars, generational talents, men of such charismatic confidence that I feel like I could successfully knock off a few Vegas casinos if any of my other 10 friends would call me back. But that's all on the screen. This round is Zestfully Clean because it's going to examine what else they've been up to. Selling soap is what it's called, but we have everything from awards to charities to pitching beverages considered in this round, and wow, do these boys have a resume that comes with that. As I hinted at the top of the show, both gentlemen have received the highest honor that People magazine can bestow. They've each won Sexiest Blake Shelton of the Year twice. Pitt in 1995 and 2000, Clooney in 97 and 2006. Wait, didn't Syriana come out like the year before? So you're telling me the guy gains 35 pounds in pure donuts and beer, then loses it in time to be the sexiest guy on earth? Again? Look, I'm just a different species. I humbly bow before thee. Both fellas have an Oscar on their shelf. 2, actually. Each one has a statue for Best Supporting Actor and one for producing. So now let's start diving into what we're really here to discuss. Who sells alcohol better? Brad Pitt got paid a reported $4 million to pitch Heineken in a Super Bowl ad, but George Clooney and his buddy Randy Gerber, better known as Mr. Cindy Crawford, congrats, created the Casamigos tequila brand, which is sold even better than rocker turned tequila CEO Sammy Hagar's Cabo Wabo brand. They've moved over 1 million cases, and on top of that, if you were drinking too hard the night before, you might want some caffeine to perk you up the next day. Don't worry, George has you covered there too. He's made an estimated $40 million representing Nespresso. And in 2021, guess who else started doing coffee ads? You guessed it, Benjamin Button. Hey, are you an old baby who needs a pick-me-up in the middle afternoon after you're starting to age backwards? Coffee. Both are also heavily involved in charities, and they teamed up to raise millions of dollars to combat humanitarian crises in the Darfur region of the Sudan under the banner, Not on My Watch. And while Clooney got a few big breaks on TV before he was a movie star, Pitt has popped onto the small screen since he became an A-lister to the delight of many a studio audience, most notably when he jumped onto the set of Friends.
Typical of you, Rachel Green, Queen Rachel, does whatever she wants in little Rachel land.
And here's what's really fun. They both also run production companies, Pitt with Plan B and Clooney with Smokehouse, and sometimes those two companies will get in bidding wars over the rights to a sought-after project. Brad Pitt won out for Moneyball, Clooney was the victor when Argo was at stake, then Pitt gained a measure of revenge after he clinched The Big Short, and now a new thriller starring Pitt and Clooney sparked its own rights battle, with Apple TV reportedly winning. But through it all, if you're looking at who's done more off-camera, you can't go wrong with either. However, Casamigos sold for an estimated $1 billion. That's too much to ignore lest I get on Scrooge McDuck's bad side, and in a round all about salesmanship, I gotta go with George Clooney. Clooney gets the round, and we're tied once again, 2-2. And now it's time for the wild card round. Wow, what a difference. Okay, admit it, you didn't think that a versus episode between Brad Pitt and George Clooney would be decided in Bend, Oregon, but here we are. The last existing Blockbuster video is in that very town, but back when these fellas became movie stars, you had a Blockbuster on every street corner, a Hollywood Video in every village, and in my hometown of Colonial Williamsburg, we had Video Update. 2 of them. So it's going to be a battle of 6 sections to win the war. Your classic video store genres of horror, action, comedy, sci-fi, drama, and family films to win this round and thus the match. Who has the better flick in each corner of Blockbuster? Which actor can lay claim to the best in a particular realm of classification? Let's get things going with our first category. Wait. Did we rewind Best Instinct? My mom's going to kill me if she gets charged $2 again. Kicking off with horror, and as much buzz as Interview with a Vampire received when it was released, it never really did that much for me. The trio of Brad, Tom Cruise, and Christian Slater was exciting to see, and it was a true breakout performance for a young Kirsten Dunst. But if we're talking vampire movies, I gotta set the bar with From Dusk Till Dawn. Oh wait, what's that? I hear something. Could it be a horde of zombies piling on top of each other to climb a massive wall in World War Z? You know, say what you want about undead walkers, but they put a premium on working together. Solid teammates. If it was too close to call between WWZ and FDTD, then we'll let them debate the silver medal rights later. The gold has to go to 7 in the horror section, and we head over to sci-fi. Brad Pitt could go up 2-0 here, as he has an ace in the hole with Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys. Clooney can counter with Gravity. The undercard here, I suppose, would be Solaris taking on Ad Astra, but as far as the heavyweight division is concerned, Gravity has the Tomatometer and box office advantage with room to spare. And although 12 Monkeys was much more ambitious and daring, Gravity stuck the landing a little better, even if poor George wasn't necessarily around to witness it. Clooney gets the point, and we're tied 1-1. And now we head over to action movies. These fellas have combined to make at least a baker's dozen of quality action films, from spy thrillers like The American or Spy Game to the zany comedic injection of flicks like The Lost City, all the way to war thievery with Three Kings. But George Clooney officially became a movie star after Out of Sight, so we'll let that flick go up against the Brad Pitt actioner that starred someone else important in his life, Angelina Jolie, with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Both actioners are fun rides that rely on the romantic chemistry of the two leads to keep us enthralled. So I'll make a snap decision and roll with Out of Sight, because it came along first and also features Michael Keaton, who's as good of a tiebreaker as it gets. Next up is comedy, and here's where Clooney's history with the Coen brothers will pay dividends. Brad and George were wonderful in Burn After Reading, but that movie will be Pitt's submission. Clooney also has Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and I find that to be far superior to both Hail Caesar and Burn After Reading. G. Clue gets the point, and now goes up 3-1. Luckily, Brad Pitt has a few family movies to get him back in the ballgame. George Clooney was fantastic in that Fox movie about the Mister, but Brad has Sinbad, which is, and he has Happy Feet too, penguins, but he'll take the round on the strength of Megamind. He's the hero of heroes in that family animated feature with a great soundtrack, and now he can tie the lead of George if he's able to score big in dramas, which is the most tightly contested of all these categories. These two gentlemen know how to cook up a great performance in a riveting story, and you know that's the case because winners like Good Night and Good Luck, Moneyball, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, and Inglourious Basterds will just be sitting on the bench here. Going for the glory is going to be Fight Club for Brad Pitt and Up in the Air for George. What a tough call from me. Up in the Air is how I patterned my actual life, but sometimes I wish I had a club where we do stuff that's not talked about. I gotta give the slight edge to Fight Club simply because it took us through so many twists and turns and head trips, even as the story itself never loses momentum. So we're tied at 3 apiece, meaning we go to the tiebreaker within the tiebreaker round, kind of like double secret probation, and we'll head to that final section that Quentin Tarantino took way too seriously when he worked at Hollywood Video, staff picks. Yep, those off-the-wall favorites selected by your video store employees to wow customers. What would they be for George and Brad? I'd say it's Michael Clayton for Clooney and the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford for Pitt, and I just said a lot of names. Staff picks are good to impress your friends with cinema, but the performances and story gotta hold up. That's certainly the case with both of these gems, but for a complete movie experience, I feel like Michael Clayton wins out because it's well acted and isn't, one of the slowest movies ever. I'm riveted by the Jesse James movie, but at some point, I am going to take a nap, wake up, and we'll still be talking about killing that guy from the Old West. So Clooney wins the staff picks, and thus the blockbuster round, and thus the match. In one of the closest episodes in show and all of sports history, George Clooney has defeated Brad Pitt 3-2. Wow, I really didn't see it going this way, and I write the show. I felt like Brad had the upper hand the whole match, but he couldn't quite close the deal against his good buddy George. However, this is all just my opinion, and I didn't even work at Video Update. I applied multiple times, but never got the green light, so instead I forged a summer job career at Mini Golf America instead, where I owned the course record for like a night. Hit me up on social media with your opinion and defend your choice with vigor. I'm at Mark Ellis, and your question, Brad or George? They're both beloved by all of us here at Rotten Tomatoes, so stay tuned for all the latest in movies, TV, and actors who eat food in every scene they're in. Thanks for watching Versus. I'm your host, Mark Ellis, and as always, this show is the reverse Moneyball quote. There's all the other shows, and then 50 Feet of Crap, and then us. I probably should have just said you're either in or you're out right now.